Keanu Reeves was sitting in a McDonald's in Los Angeles enjoying a moment of calm when a 5-year-old boy clutching a broken toy car approached and whispered something in his ear. Immediately, Keanu turned pale and dialed 1. What happens next will move everyone. Before we continue this story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another special story for you. It was a sun afternoon in Los Angeles. The sky was painted a flawless shade of blue with only a few wisps of clouds lazily drifting by while the sun's warmth reflected off the shining Hollywood signs. Keanu Reeves, known for his simplicity and charisma, was driving his car toward a charity event supporting underprivileged children. He had just spent several hours participating in activities, donating his time and energy to a cause he deeply believed in. After the event, feeling tired but wearing a calm smile, Keanu decided to do something unusual. Instead of heading straight home or choosing a sophisticated restaurant, he stopped at a McDonald's by a busy avenue. Why not? He thought he missed simple moments like this where he could relax away from the constant spotlight of the media inside the restaurant. The atmosphere was welcoming. Despite the usual hustle and bustle, families were scattered across the tables. Children laughed while playing in the small playground, and the sound of orders being called out echoed in the air. The familiar aroma of fries and burgers filled the space, evoking a nostalgic feeling. Keanu entered discreetly, wearing a simple black t-shirt and sunglasses, a combination that emphasized his casual and laid-back demeanor. He ordered a simple meal at the counter and found a seat in a quiet corner of the restaurant with his phone turned off. He allowed himself to observe the surroundings for him. This was a rare moment of disconnection from his hectic life. While he ate, something caught his attention. A child sitting at a nearby table couldn't stop looking at him. It was a boy with messy blonde hair, wearing a slightly faded blue shirt in his hands. He held a broken toy car, clutching it to his chest, as if it were his most prized possession. The boy seemed hesitant, his eyes shining with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Keanu smiled subtly, finding the scene endearing, but soon returned to his meal. However, he noticed that the boy continued to watch him, as if gathering the courage to do something. At the same table, sitting beside the boy, was a man. He was tall, well-dressed, wearing a pristine suit, and maintaining a rigid posture. The man, apparently engrossed in a phone call, had a serious and cold expression. With every movement the boy made, he cast disapproving glances, as if the simple act of breathing out of rhythm was an inconvenience. Keanu couldn't help but notice the tension at that table. The contrast between the boy and the man was striking. While the boy appeared small and vulnerable, the man exuded authority and control with each passing minute. The boy's restlessness grew until he finally did the unexpected. With timid steps, the boy climbed down from his chair, clutching the broken car to his chest. His eyes didn't leave Keanu as he slowly walked in his direction. The restaurant seemed to grow quieter, as if the world around them had slowed down. Keanu noticed the boy's approach and set his burger down on the table, turning fully toward him. When the boy stopped beside his chair, his eyes were filled with something Keanu couldn't immediately identify, a mix of fear, determination, and hope. The boy leaned in his small body, trembling slightly. He opened his mouth and began to speak, but his voice was so low that Keanu had to lean closer to hear what the boy whispered. Left the actor surprised, but the moment was interrupted before Keanu could react. The man at the table abruptly turned, noticing Ethan's absence. His eyes locked into Keanu, and something in his gaze sent a chill down the actor's spine. The man stood up, slowly adjusting his jacket as he walked toward them. Keanu maintained his calm demeanor, but something in his expression shifted. He knew that this seemingly random encounter would ultimately change his life in ways he couldn't yet predict. Keanu realized he was dealing with something much bigger than he had imagined. The restaurant was busier, now filled with the sound of voices and laughter echoing as families enjoyed their meals. Yet for Keanu, all of this felt distant. He focused on the boy standing before him, trying to understand the reason behind his approach. Ethan looked small and vulnerable, but there was something in his expression, a sense of urgency that Keanu couldn't ignore. Ethan clutched a broken toy car tightly to his chest as if it were his only source of comfort. He glanced briefly, over his shoulder toward the table he'd come from sitting. There was the man Keanu now knew as Mr. Harris watching, them intently, phone still in hand. His gaze was cold and intimidating, and Ethan quickly looked away as though afraid of what might happen. Keanu crouched down to the boy's level, speaking in the calmest voice. He could manage Ethan. "It's okay, you can tell me what's going on," the boy hesitated. His free hand grabbed the hem of his faded blue shirt as his eyes darted around, making sure no one else was listening. Finally, in a voice so quiet, it was almost a whisper, he replied, "I can't talk here, he'll get mad." Keanu took a deep breath. He could tell Ethan was scared, but whatever was happening had to be serious for him to seek help from a stranger. Keanu nodded, trying to reassure him. "It's okay, Ethan, you're safe now." Before Keanu could say more, Harris rose from his seat. He adjusted his suit jacket with deliberate movements and began walking toward them. His steps were steady, and though his expression was controlled, it betrayed a hint of irritation. Keanu stood up, slowly positioning himself between Ethan and Harris as the man approached. Harris stopped a few steps away, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sorry about this, Ethan can be a bit overly curious at times. I hope he hasn't been bothering you," Kay remained, calm, his gaze fixed on Harris, years of experience reading. People had taught him to trust his instincts, and something about this man set off alarm bells. Without breaking eye contact, Keanu replied with a relaxed smile. "Actually, he was just showing May his toy car. It looks broken, he must really love it." Harris narrowed his eyes for a moment before forcing another polite response. "Ah, yes, he's quite attached to it." He then extended his hand toward Ethan. "Come on, Ethan, it's time for us to go," but Ethan took a step back, slightly hiding behind Keanu. He didn't say a word, but the gesture was enough to chip away at Harris's patience. His smile faltered briefly, and he let out an irritated sigh. "Look, I appreciate you keeping him entertained, but we have somewhere to be. Excuse us," Harris said, moving to grab Ethan before he could reach the boy. Keanu gently placed a hand on Harris's shoulder, stopping him. "Commitments can wait. I think Ethan needs a moment. He seemed eager to talk to me about his car. Maybe we can figure that out first." The waitress, who had been observing the growing tension, approached with a tray in her hands. "Is everything okay here?" she asked, casting a suspicious glance at Harris. Keanu smiled at her. "It's fine. Actually, could you bring Ethan a drink? Looks like he could use something." The waitress nodded but gave Harris another look before walking away. As soon as she left, Keanu discreetly took out his phone and began typing a message to an emergency contact. He knew he had to act quickly. Harris noticed the movement and stepped closer. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this has gone far enough," he said, his tone growing firmer. He tried to maintain control, but his eyes betrayed growing impatience. Keanu smiled again, though his expression had become more serious. "I'm just trying to help a boy who seems like he needs someone to listen. I'm sure you can understand that." Ethan, still clutching his broken car, finally spoke, his voice trembling. "I don't want to go, please. Can I stay here?" The boy's simple plea made Harris freeze for a moment. He looked at Keanu, his expression hardening, before saying, "I suggest you don't meddle where you're not wanted." Keanu kept his composure, but he knew he was dealing with something far more complex than he had initially thought. Ethan was clearly scared, and any wrong move could put him in danger. Keanu needed to tread carefully, but he also knew he couldn't leave Ethan alone. Keanu pressed send on his phone, the message for help already on its way. Harris stared directly at him, the two locked in a silent confrontation. Keanu knew time was running out. Something tells me this is far from over. Keanu thought. The air in the restaurant felt heavier, despite the usual background noise of voices and laughter. Keanu, standing between Ethan and Harris, could feel the weight of the situation. The boy, small and vulnerable, clutched the broken toy car to his chest, as if it were his shield against the world. His anxious eyes were locked on Keanu. Keanu crouched down again, trying to reassure him. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You can tell me what's going on. I'm here to listen." Ethan glanced around nervously, checking if Harris was still watching the man now. seated back at the table, kept a fixed, threatening gaze on them, phone in hand. As if he were waiting for something, Ethan gripped the toy car tighter and finally stepped closer. The boy leaned slightly toward Keanu and murmured, "He did something bad to my mom. Can you help?" Keanu froze for a moment. The boy's low, trembling voice carried something here. Cognized immediately, a cry for help. He knew this wasn't the time for unnecessary questions. The priority now was in ensuring Ethan's safety. Keanu looked directly into the boy's eyes. "It's okay, I'll help, I promise," he replied. His voice firm but reassuring. Ethan nodded timidly, but the fear in his eyes didn't fade. He glanced back at Harris once more, as if dreading that he might already know what he had just said. Harris noticed the exchange between Keanu and Ethan and stood up abruptly. He adjusted his suit jacket, walking toward them with slow, deliberate steps. His forced smile failed to hide the growing irritation in his demeanor. "Sorry to interrupt, but Ethan and I were just leaving." "Thanks for keeping him entertained," Harris said, extending a hand to take Ethan before he could touch the boy. Keanu stood and blocked his path, although his posture remained relaxed. Something in Keanu's expression made Harris hesitate. "He's still telling me about his toy car. I think he wants a few more minutes," Keanu said, his voice calm yet firm. Harris narrowed his eyes, clearly irritated by the interference. "That's very kind of you, but he's with me. We have an appointment," so Keanu didn't budge. He maintained his position, looking directly at Harris. "Kids need time to talk. I'm sure you understand that, right?" For a moment, Harris seemed to lose his patience, but he quickly regained his controlled expression. "Of course, but we don't have time to waste." He turned his attention to Ethan, now hiding behind Keanu. "Let's go, Ethan. It's time to leave." Before Harris could insist, the waitress appeared again. Holding her notepad, she discreetly placed a folded piece of paper on the table where Keanu was seated, pretending it was a napkin. Keanu picked it up and read it quickly. "The police are on their way." Keanu felt a wave of relief, but he knew the danger was far from over. He looked at Ethan and offered a small, reassuring smile. Then he turned back to Harris. "Why don't we all sit down for a moment? It seems like Ethan just needs a little time to breathe sometimes. Us kids just want to be heard," Keanu said, keeping his tone steady. Harris gave a cold stare but reluctantly nodded. He returned to the table, though his eyes never left Keanu. And Ethan, muttering into his phone, he appeared more agitated with every passing moment. Keanu knew time was running out. He needed to protect Ethan, while also figuring out more about what was happening. Harris ended his phone call and stood again, adjusting his suit jacket. He shot a hard look at Keanu and Ethan, his expression now darker and more threatening. "You have no idea what you're getting yourselves into," Harris muttered, starting to walk toward the door. Keanu knew the next decision would be crucial. The moment of truth was closing in fast. Harris walked toward the door with slow, calculated steps, each movement carefully measured. Keanu watched him intently, fully aware that any impulsive action could escalate the situation. Ethan stayed close to Key, clutching his toy cardo, his chest, his eyes fixed on the floor. The silence between them was broken only by the muffled sound of conversations. In the restaurant, Harris paused near the entrance and pretended to adjust his suit jacket. But Keanu noticed something. In his movements, it wasn't casual. He seemed to be assessing his surroundings, perhaps planning his next move. Harris reached into the inner pocket of his jacket and pulled out a phone, quickly typing something before returning to Thedable. The waitress, who had remained vigilant, approached Keanu discreetly and whispered, "The police are on their way. They're just a few minutes out." Keanu nodded subtly, keeping his eyes on Harris. The man was now seated again, but his demeanor had shifted. He appeared more tense, frequently checking his phone. Keanu recognized this as a clear sign. Harris was either worried about what was unfolding or trying to regain control of the situation before the police arrived. Harris exuded an air of dominance over his environment. His gestures were deliberate and his word carefully chosen. When he noticed Keanu still observing him, he finally broke the silence. "You seem very interested in our conversation, Mr. Reeves." Keanu kept his expression neutral. Ethan looked scared, I'm just trying to understand why. Harris let out a dry, humorless laugh. Kids have active imaginations. They make things up, exaggerate. You of all people must know that right in your line of work, you deal with stories all the time. He gestured toward Ethan. Maybe that's the case here. Keanu crossed his arms, remaining calm. Maybe, but kids are also more honest than adults. They say what they feel, even if they don't always know how to express it. Harris leaned forward on the table, resting his elbows. Then, why don't we let Ethan decide? Ethan, do you want to live now, or do you want to stay here and keep talking with our friend? Ethan hesitated. He looked at Keanu, then at Harris. His trembling hand tightened its grip on the toy car as if drawing courage from it. Finally, he replied in a barely audible voice, I want to stay here. Ethan's words made Harris clench his fists for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. His smile looked even more forced now. Very well, but I hope this doesn't take much longer. As Harris maintained his controlled demeanor, the waitress returned, this time with another note for Keanu. She placed a glass on the table and slid the paper underneath. Keanu discreetly picked it up and, "We're there 2 minutes away, hold tight." Keanu knew he had to keep buying time. He turned to Ethan, steering the conversation back into safer territory. Ethan, you mentioned your mom is hurt. Do you know where she's now? Ethan began to answer but stopped abruptly when Harris slammed his hand on the table just hard enough to draw attention. That's enough questions, Reeves. This is none of your business. Keanu slowly turned to Harris. His voice remained calm, but there was an unmistakable weight in his words. If she's hurt, then it's everyone's business, especially mine. Harris leaned forward again, locking eyes with Keanu. I suggest you stop now. You don't know who you're dealing with. Keanu knew he was dealing with someone dangerous. He held Harris's gaze for a moment, before slowly standing, signaling Ethan to stay close by his side. If you want to talk about this, we can do it civil, or you can wait here until the police arrive. Keanu's words froze Harris for a moment. His expression hardened as he glanced around, realizing it. The situation was slipping out of his control. Outside, 2 police cruisers pulled up to the restaurant's entrance. 2 officers stepped out and entered the establishment with purposeful strides. Harris spotted them immediately and stood up, adjusting his suit jacket as he glanced at Keanu. You've made a big mistake, he muttered, taking a step toward the exit. Keanu, still standing protectively beside Ethan, knew this was the moment to act. He had to make sure Harris didn't escape. The glass doors of the McDonald's swung open as 2 uniformed police officers entered with purposeful strides. Their eyes scanned the room, quickly picking up on the tension at Thedable, where Keanu, Ethan, and Harris were seated. The waitress, visibly nervous, discreetly pointed in their direction. With a subtle nod, Keanu remained calm, but he could feel Ethan clutching his arm tightly. The boy's small body trembling, he knelt down quickly and whispered, It's okay now. They're here to help. Harris, on the other hand, straightened up, adjusting his suit jacket with a controlled movement. His posture exuded a mix of arrogance and disdain. He glanced at the officers as though already preparing for a confrontation. The 2 officers, a tall man identified by his badge as Officer Ramirez, and a female officer named Vega, approached the table with serious expressions. Ramirez spoke first. Received a call about a potential issue. Here, is everything okay? Harris offered, her smile. Everything is fine, officer. There must have been some misunderstanding. I'm just here with mice and enjoying the day. Before the officers could respond, Keanu intervened. He rose slowly, keeping Ethan close by his side. Officers, I think you should hear what the boy has to say. Ramirez turned his attention to Ethan, who looked down at the floor. Nervously, Vega crouched down to the boy's level and gave him a gentle smile. Hi, there, my name's Vega. Can you tell me your name? Ethan hesitated, glancing at Keanu for reassurance. Keanu nodded, giving his shoulder a light squeeze. Finally, Ethan, murmured Ethan. Ethan, Vega repeated softly. It's okay, Ken. You tell us what's going on. We're here to help. Ethan's eyes darted from Vega to Harris, whose calm expression shifted into one of irritation. Don't say anything, Ethan. We're leaving, Harris said, his voice now sharper. Ramirez stepped in, blocking Harris's I suggest you stay where you are, sir. We're not going anywhere until we understand what's happening. Here, the presence of the officers seemed to give Ethan a little more courage. He finally raised his eyes and spoke, his voice soft but clear. He hurt. My mom and he said no one can help as the restaurant fell silent. Ramirez and Vega exchanged glances as Keanu crouched beside Ethan. Once again, you did the right thing by telling us, Keanu said. With an encouraging smile, Harris's patient snapped, this is ridiculous. He's just a child. He's making things up. My lawyer is going to love this, Harris said. Attempting to push past the officers, Ramirez placed a firm hand on Harris's chest, stopping him in his tracks. Let's clear this up first, sir. Stay where you are. Vega turned back to Ethan. Ethan, do you know where your mom is now? Is she, home? Ethan nodded, but his face showed deep concern. She can't get up, he said. No one would believe me. Keanu gave Ethan's shoulder another reassuring squeeze. We believe you. It's okay now. Harris let out a forced, dry laugh. This is absurd. You're really going to listen to a child over a responsible adult? I won't stand for this. Ramirez remained calm, sir. It seems we have sufficient cause to investigate the situation. We'll need you to come with us. Harris took a step back, his eyes now filled with anger. You have no idea who you're dealing with. He attempted to walk away, but Vega acted swiftly with a firm movement. She grabbed Harris's arm while Ramirez stepped in to assist. Pinning him in place, are you resisting a police order? Vega asked. As she secured the handcuffs around his wrists, Keanu watched, standing protectively beside Ethan, who now appeared slightly relieved but still visibly shaken. He's lying, Harris muttered as the officers escorted him out of the restaurant. Keanu turned to Ethan and asked gently, do you want to show me where your mom is? We can go there now with the police. Ethan nodded, slowly clutching his broken toy car in one hand and Keanu's hand in the other. He whispered, I just want her to be okay. Keanu felt the pang of emotion in his chest but knew this was the time to act. He turned to the officers, letting head to his house. There's still more to music. The restaurant had calmed down, but the tension lingered in the air. Customers watched in silence, some whispering among themselves as Harris was escorted out by the police inside. Keanu stayed close to Ethan, ensuring the boy felt safe. Ethan still clutched his broken toy car, his small hands trembling. With the force of his grip, Keanu crouched down beside him again. Ethan, we're going to take care of this. The police are here, and they're going to help us. Do you want to tell me more about what happened with your mom? Ethan looked up at Keanu, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. Hesitated for a moment before speaking in a low voice. He yelled at her. Then she fell on the floor. She said she'd be okay, but I know she wasn't. Keanu felt a lump in his throat. The boy's words were simple, but the weight they carried was heartbreaking. He knew they needed to act fast. Standing, Keanu signaled to the officers, who returned inside after securing Harris in a patrol car. He's afraid to go home, Keanu told Officer Ramirez, and he's worried about his mom. We need to get there as soon as possible. Ramirez nodded, pulling out a small notepad to write down the address. Officer Vega knelt beside Ethan, speaking to him directly with a gentle tone. Ethan, can you take us to your house? We're going to make sure your mom is okay. Ethan hesitated, again glancing at Keanu for reassurance. When Keanu nodded, Ethan gave a small, timid nod. I can show you, but he always locks the door. I don't know how to get in. Keanu placed a comforting hand on Ethan's shoulder. Don't worry, we'll figure it out. As the officers prepared to leave, Vega was informed by a restaurant employee that Harris had left a small backpack at his table. Likely in his rush to leave, she brought the bag over to the table where Keanu and Ethan were seated outside. Harris shouted from inside the patrol car, you're making a mistake. You don't have any proof. I'm an innocent man. Ramirez ignored the outburst as Vega helped Keanu and Ethan into the police car during the ride. Keanu tried to keep Ethan calm, sharing small stories to distract him. Did you know toy cars are really easy to fix? I'm sure once all of this is over, we can figure out how to fix yours for the first time. Ethan gave a faint smile, though his eyes still seemed distant. Do you think my mom is going to be okay? Asked. Keanu looked at him and answered, sincerely, we're going to do everything we can. to make sure she's as the car approached Ethan's house. The atmosphere grew heavy with tension. The street was eerily quiet, and the windows of the house were dark. Vega noticed the front door was slightly ajar, prompting Ramirez to hit the brakes immediately. "Stay." Here he ordered Keanu and Ethan. Ash and Vega stepped out of the car drawing their weapons. Keanu turned to Ethan and said softly, "Stay with me. We're not going to let anything happen outside." The officers approached the house cautiously, the silence around them feeling more threatening than any noise when Ramirez pushed the door open. What they found inside would change everything. Officers Ramirez and Vega arrive at Ethan's house accompanied by Keanu and the boy. The front door is ajar and the interior reveals signs of chaos, overturned furniture, evidence of a struggle, and broken objects scattered across the floor. Proceeding with caution, Ramirez and Vega discover Sarah, Ethan's mother, unconscious on the living room floor with a small cut on her head. Despite her critical condition, Sarah is alive and paramedics are called immediately. As Sarah is stabilized by the paramedics, Vega and Ramirez review the notebook found in Harris's backpack. They uncovered detailed notes revealing that Harris had been monitoring Sarah and Ethan, controlling their movements, and planning to abduct the boy and take him to another state. This discovery solidifies the severity of Harris's crimes, including charges of abuse and attempted kidnapping. Outside, Harris, now handcuffed and seated in the back of the police car, watches the activity with a dark expression. He mutters threats as he's driven away by the officers, but Keanu remains focused on Ethan and Sarah. The boy clings to Keanu's hand and asks if he will stay with them. With a warm smile, Keanu promises to stand by Ethan until everything is resolved. The hospital was bathed in the soft light of dawn, a promise of a fresh start. Sarah lay in a quiet room connected to monitors and an IV. Her face, though pale, showed relief. Finally being safe, Ethan sat beside her, carefully holding her hand while Keanu stood nearby, ensuring they both felt comfortable. After tense hours, the doctor entered the room with good news. "Check out of danger," he said. "Her injuries weren't severe, and with rest, she'll make a full recovery." Ethan let out a deep sigh of relief and glanced at Keanu with a shy smile, silently thanking him for being there. A few days later, Sarah was discharged from the hospital. Though still emotionally shaken, she expressed immense gratitude for the help she had received before leaving. She turned to Keanu with tears in her eyes and said, "I don't know how to thank you. You saved our lives." Keanu, as humble as ever, responded with a warm smile. "I was just in the right place at the right time there. All hero here is Ethan. He had the courage to ask for help." Ethan, holding his now repaired toy car, gave a timid smile. Keanu had arranged for the toy. Toby fixed a small reminder that even broken things could be restored after difficult times. Inspired by the experience, Keanu decided to do more. He reached out to a local organization that supported victims of domestic violence, offering financial assistance and visibility for their cause. He also stayed in touch with Sarah and Ethan, ensuring they received the support they needed to rebuild their lives. Months later, Keanu was invited to a ceremony organized by the police to honor Ethan. The boy was awarded the title of Young Hero for his bravery in seeking help and saving his mother during the event. Ethan handed Keanu a drawing, a boy and a man holding hands, with the words "My Hero" written in colorful letters. Keanu smiled and said, "You were the real Ethan. Asking for help takes more courage than anything else." If you enjoyed this story, we have many more that will warm your heart. Click the screen to explore more stories of hope, compassion, and resilience.